And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We're talking Max Verstappen and his chances for 2025. Indeed, he is probably one of the favourites. However, there's an interesting article on the race which I'd like to get into, saying 5 big problems for Verstappen and Red Bull going into and throughout 2025. So is he one of the favourites? I'll let you know. So here we go. This is by Scott Mitchell, acclaimed F1 journalist. They're talking about Max Verstappen is currently, and I can't disagree with this, he is very much at the peak of his powers. It says here with 4 Formula 1 titles in a row, which is absolutely amazing. Very, though, similar to Sebastian Vettel when, yes, without any doubt, over all those 4 years, you can make an argument that Red Bull had the best car, very even maybe in 2021, and the best car for the first part of 2024, so much so, it was so dominant that it helped him win that challenge. It gained it got him the lead, and his own skills kept the lead, I think, throughout the year as well, but it definitely gave him that head start. So, another championship success last year, papered over a lot of F1 cracks that emerged throughout Verstappen's dominant, well, he was the dominant force, wasn't he? So the season finale in Abu Dhabi, Verstappen would only say of the prospect of a 4-team battle in 2025. He said, "It depends a lot on how you develop throughout the winter because I hope to be in that fight." We hope he is in too. We could potentially have one of the most exciting seasons in Formula 1. We did have one of the most exciting seasons in Formula 1 for a long time when you look at 2024 and the amount of winners that we had and the amount of teams that won. But Verstappen himself said, but we have a lot of work to do. For sure. So Verstappen framed it very much as Red Bull needing to get into the championship picture this year. They finished the year very much not being the fastest car, one of the fastest, depending if they got the car set up right, etc. Because remember, he won Qatar. It wasn't good. It was the best car and driver combination. But in Abu Dhabi, no. So, what was arguably Verstappen's best title yet didn't solve a few problems that have been piling up for the Red Bull team. Now, it says last year a lot of cracks emerged throughout an intense, controversy-filled season for Red Bull. Off track, an increasingly difficult one. On it, yeah, off the track, when you hear WhatsApp gate, Christian Horner gate, sex scandal gate, but it really wasn't a sex scandal in the end, was it? No. There was no confirmation of that, but the media were kind of like intimating that it must have been a lot of pressure for Christian Horner, but whatever happened, he is still there. So they put what's really weakened Red Bull. So as you know, Verstappen did a really good job in 2024. That was that dominant early one, including Miami, which Verstappen would have won probably without the safety car, but he proved just about no match for Lando Norris when the safety car came out. We all thought, a lot of people thought, and I'm sure you're with me here, that it was very much going to be Verstappen winning it. It was only a matter of time before he passed Lando Norris. But no, and Lando Norris won his first Grand Prix. So what they're saying is, by that measure, Verstappen spent more of 2024 without the fastest car than with it. Yes, the caveat to that, though, is, and I said this, I'm not to take away anything from Verstappen, because he did an amazing job. But yeah, nothing matters before the word "but," maybe. But he had such a dominant car. Well, he was the dominant car. Let's say up to Miami and maybe even Imola. And he was so dominant that it was guaranteed he won them all, while the other teams were fighting amongst themselves for best of the rest. And that allowed him, because they had the one dominant car, to get all those points. And when for example, when McLaren caught up, McLaren also had to contend with Red Bull. They also, at times, had to contend with Mercedes and Ferrari and therein lies the issue and the reason why that early season it was dominance from Verstappen was so important, because by the time McLaren caught up with him, the other teams were catching up, and then we had Mercedes victories, we had Ferrari victories, we had McLaren victories, we had McLaren drivers fighting each other. The one thing Verstappen did not have to worry about was his teammate, other than all the other teams and drivers. Because, for example, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, they were fairly close to each other at times. Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, they were close to each other. In fact, George Russell did get the better of Lewis Hamilton. And the two McLaren drivers were close at times as well. Even though Lando Norris did comfortably beat Oscar Piastri at times, they were close. Think of Italy, think of Hungary, for example. And Lando Norris did throw away a lot of points. That's one thing Verstappen didn't do. He didn't make many mistakes. So there's no question Verstappen was asking Red Bull, do we really know why it started to go so badly and how to fix it? For a while, Red Bull did not seem to have a clear answer to that. That was quite clear, kind of like in the middle to second third of the season. For a while, Red Bull didn't have that answer. One thing Red Bull was quietly confident of by the end of the year was that its relative pace improvement, and it did improve its pace towards the end of the year, had gone on top of the balance issues that it had so badly held back at times. And it was affecting Sergio Perez a lot more than Max Verstappen. But eventually, they were saying it got so bad that it did affect Max Verstappen. But the suggestion is that getting the car to be a little friendlier, it said, came at the cost of the package's ultimate potential and was necessary because of the time and cost restrictions faced trying to develop its way out of trouble. And that it certainly was trying to do. Now, essentially, Red Bull mitigated what it could do to limp over the line and can address the problems with bigger changes to the car for 25. Now, the issue is, did it limp over the line? No, it was still one of the 4 fastest cars. That car, I mean, like the Qatar Grand Prix, I think, was the penultimate race. It won. I think the field got so close, you needed to nail the setup as well. And, yes, depending on who had the fastest car, I think was sort of circuit specific. Now, what Verstappen's 24 title didn't answer is whether Red Bull was scrutinising itself as much as it claimed. And in relation to their pace, Horner refers to its wind tunnel as a relic of the Cold War, for example. But that was the same wind tunnel that gave it the dominant 22 and the extremely dominant 23 car. He suggested there have been some correlation problems in development and wrong decisions taken back all the way, he's saying, in 2023. So are the Red Bull tools or processes fundamentally limiting its progress for now? The answer will only materialise this year. So they're now saying a target on its back. So they've thrived by feeling it's like us against the world. That has been a powerful tactic deployed by Horner. I don't really think it's necessarily the case, but Horner likes to play the victim. Red Bull certainly more under siege than ever last year. One of the less pleasant sides of the business is the lengths that will be gone to try and capitalise on other issues in other teams, said Horner, and he said that late last year. He said, you have to remember, we came off a season where we didn't just dominate, we annihilated. Yes, you did. By winning 22 out of the 23 races, annihilated. So the higher you rise, the sharper the knives, and they got pretty sharp at some points during this year. But Red Bull was convinced that the performance swing in season was too great to be explained by others simply doing better in the development more. Yes. One of the inferences is that McLaren and others were allowed to get away with things for longer because there's been a desire for the F1 and the FIA to encourage a championship fight. The other one was Red Bull's clever braking around the Miami was found out, if you are a conspiracy theorist, and that was the other reason why suddenly they had the dominant first few races and the not so dominant first few races. Obviously, Red Bull will deny that, but it does explain a lot, doesn't it? It does explain their complete drop-off on pace so quickly. And did McLaren have a MacGuffin that made their car absolutely excel and exceed Red Bull's pace? It will be a first. I'm not saying a definite no. But then Red Bull, sure, there was evidence of shifts in the pecking order due to rivals being pulled back on flexi wings and tyre cooling tricks. Admittedly, Red Bull have tried these tyre cooling tricks before. They kind of admitted it, but obviously they've now been outlawed. In the latter stages of the season, it then felt further vindicated by the FIA subsequently drawing a line under its controversial ride height adjustment device, which was another thing. I don't think that had too much of an effect, but once again, why do they have it? Weird. Animosity and accusations don't vanish overnight, so if Red Bull still felt targeted beyond how much the leading team is usually in the firing line, that paranoia, they're saying, could still linger. And on the off chance Red Bull's right, because there's no evidence of direct or indirect interference to hold the team back or lift others up, it says, does that target stay on the team's back this season? Yes. A lot of people are going in. Yes, McLaren won the constructors, but Red Bull won the drivers. And I think a lot of people are going to go in, and I can understand that 2025, Red Bull are still going to be the team to beat. And they got a problematic key exists. So Red Bull's personnel losses mounted over 2024. Obviously, the key one being a certain Mr. Adrian Newey. And as you know, he's widely regarded as the best technical mind ever, potentially. And he left, earlier in the year. Now, influential sporting director Jonathan Wheatley, who's really helped them in the steward room as well, and running the trackside team, He's departing to become the team principal at Sauber/Audi at some point. He's going to depart in April, apparently. And 2025 arch rival McLaren has swooped for Red Bull's chief strategist, Will Courtney, a move that would eventually weaken Red Bull and should sharpen McLaren. So, kind of like the brain drain at Mercedes from 21 to 22, are we seeing the beginning of the end of this Red Bull era? Kind of like Mercedes have had to kind of have a rebuilding phase. But they're saying there's a broader issue here in how the exodus of top talents fits into Jos Verstappen's warnings. This was all around the Horner Gate, WhatsApp Gate, whatever you want to call it, gate scenario. And these are Jos Verstappen's warnings of the 2024 Red Bull imploding under Horner's leadership. I wouldn't say imploding, but there's certainly something going on. That was back when Horner's own controversy erupted around the time of extensive infighting. There were two sides. There was seemingly the Horner side and the Helmut Marko side. Ultimately, it appeared that the Horner side sort of won. They had the backing of the Red Bull family in Malaysia, and the Helmut Marko side, etc., had the backing of Austria. Yeah, a fight for the soul of Red Bull. But anyway, in terms of the short or medium-term performance consequences, one of the most commonly asked questions by fans last year was whether Newey's exit had something to do with how Red Bull declined. It's a very big coincidence, but correlation doesn't equal causation. Red Bull insisted, but they would insist, wouldn't they? To be fair, Newey was not even heavily involved in the RB90's design. Now, if that is true, why would his reduced role make a difference? And why would it not be fast so quickly? You can also argue that if Newey was not influential on the 24 car and the different design choices Red Bull made, maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe Red Bull would have avoided the missteps if the best technical mind of this generation was involved. Newey himself believes a lack of technical experience, he's come out and said, was a big factor behind Red Bull's performance decline. Now, either way, he was not around to troubleshoot problems during Red Bull's decline, and his multi-dimensional thinking and experience, the race is suggesting, and I completely agree, would have been absolutely invaluable. I think they wouldn't have had that big decline, or they would have come out of it a lot quicker with Adrian Newey. And this is now an emerging doubt about how well Red Bull can manage such important transitions. It is restructuring its trackside setup for 25, a new setup believed to have been key to keeping Verstappen's race engineer, Giampiero Lambrassi, happy with GP, as he'll be doing a broader role as head of racing. Now, Horner calls it an evolution and believes that the face is moving into new places. That almost rhymes. Bring a renewed enthusiasm, determination, and commitment. He also claimed that as a company, we have less than a 4% turnover in our staff. Yeah, the problem is this year, I'm not denying that, but this year that 4% was quite important, and it was a 4% that had these key people leaving. He also claimed, which is way, way below any national average of any average UK-based company, of course. But this is Formula 1 we're dealing with, Horner. I mean, statistics. He's talking statistics. Now, let me tell you about something about statistics. My dad always used to say, if you had your head in the fire and your feet in the freezer, statistically speaking, you'll be comfortable. So, still, Red Bull's having to confront the inevitable. Rejig the pieces as an all-conquering team gets broken up. Yeah, very similar to what Mercedes. Now, here's the interesting thing. Intra-team tensions. I don't think they've gone away, but I think they've done more than papering over the cracks. They've kind of smoothed over, putting a plaster maybe over it rather than papering over the cracks. Plasters don't last forever, though, do they? So, and here's the big if. If Red Bull starts the new season how it spent the second half of last year, then Verstappen would be consigned to being the underdog, and that could come at a price. It can't be assumed that Verstappen's quality performances at Red Bull's robustness as a race team, being razor-sharp in strategy and race execution, can be replicated with the same result as in a title for 2025. It needs a faster car, they're saying. Building and then defending a points lead, as was the case last year, is one thing. Yeah, but starting on the back foot, if they start where they were in 2024, it's going to be a lot harder, albeit not impossible, because as I said, that car won Qatar. It won, one of the last races, not the last race. So Verstappen's father Josto was never shy about expressing his frustrations with the team. Max himself had plenty of flare-ups over the radio, just remember Hungary, in moments of extreme pressure and frustration. Rumours of a move to Mercedes circulated for a long time, until they were temporarily put to bed in the summer. But Toto Wolff always said that it was going to be Kimi Antonelli. But then he was flirting with Max from the beginning of the year. It's weird. So will Jos start searching for that exit route again? Will Mercedes come knocking if Verstappen is still the target for 2026? Of course, if Verstappen is potentially a free guy. I expect every team to try, are going to want him, but obviously only a few key teams. But Mercedes and Aston Martin, could he join this Aston Martin? They call it super team. I think as long as they have Lance Stroll, you can't call it a super team. He can only compensate for a performance disadvantage for so long. Yes, the driver can make a difference, but let's be fair, Max Verstappen has never winning the title in a Haas, in a Williams, in an Aston Martin of the last couple of years, good as though it was, even of the McLaren in 2023. I don't think he would have won in the Ferrari this year, or even the McLaren this year, simply because their car was not that good at the beginning. He said he would win in the McLaren. I'm not so sure. Because you've got obviously a strong teammate. Anyway, I digress. That's ifs and buts. So if the sum of everything facing Red Bull means that it starts 2025 behind McLaren and Ferrari, someone's patience will wear thin. Verstappen's. Horner is convinced Verstappen will stay. He said he's recently made that statement that he loves working within the team and has every intention of doing so. But the reality is not nearly so set, even with the contract running to the end of 2028. What about the post-Verstappen problem? Well, they're saying the scenario Red Bull hopes doesn't have to prepare for, and publicly continues to insist it doesn't have to worry about his life after Verstappen. Here's the issue. I mean, where Mercedes had the Kimi Antonelli, they got your George Russells. McLaren have sort of obviously, got an Oscar Piastri and a Lando Norris. If one of them leaves, the other one's quite talented. The same with Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, you've got Verstappen and Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson could be awesome. Yeah, I've rhymed again, sorry. But he still is at the top level and unknown. We do, as of February 2025, we don't know how good he is. Anyway, he said, we are very grateful that he's our driver, said Horner, and hopefully that will remain the case for many years to come, at least until 28. That's when his Red Bull contract runs out, albeit contracts are only worth the paper they're printed on. As we know in Formula One, things can change at a hair's notice. So Verstappen's departure might seem distant in theory, but it's reality Red Bull needs to consider. Oh, that's a bit of a burn, the race. So there was a point in early 24 at the height of Red Bull's internal power struggles when Verstappen hinted he may want to leave if helmet marker was ousted. In response, Horner said nobody's bigger than the team. It's as close as anyone at Red Bull's ever come to calling the Verstappens out. Collectively saying, if you want to leave, there's the door. That's not the outcome Red Bull want. And they want another title, and another title victory helped kick that a little further down the road. The driver's title, obviously. But it doesn't cement the relationship longer term. And Verstappen's importance, it's saying, to Red Bull has never been greater or more obvious. So what they're essentially saying is, potentially, Red Bull needs Verstappen more than Verstappen needs Red Bull at the moment. And Red Bull wouldn't have won the vast majority of its recent titles without him. Yeah, well, you just need to look at how good Sergio Perez was. No, he would not have won the championship, I think. Yes, he did finish second in 2023 when they had that dominant car, but yeah, I don't know. The car was not as bad as Sergio Perez made it look at times, but only a great driver could achieve what Verstappen did with it. Okay. The year underscored how much Red Bull relies on Verstappen, and they did. Only a top-line driver, a Verstappen, an Alonso, a Hamilton, a Schumacher, I think, could have, may well have pulled that out, potentially. But once again, like I keep saying, he did have that points buffer at the beginning of the year when that car was the most dominant. Red Bull's current driver pipeline has required urgent attention, and it says it lacks a proven superstar capable of stepping in should Verstappen leave. A new teammate Liam Lawson might show potential, but he's not a surefire front runner. That's exactly what we are saying. So if Verstappen were to leave on the eve of pre-season or even in 12 months' time, which is easy to imagine, they're saying, Red Bull will be in trouble. Its achievement in this rules era have been extraordinary, up to and including the 2024 title, the race is saying. But the route to its most recent success underlined more than just the classic challenge of staying in the top of Formula One. It exposed some specific problems within Red Bull itself. And if the signs this year are that they have not been properly addressed, which we don't know, even after testing, until the cars get on track in Australia, we don't know 100%. How many times, for example, not recently, but in the late 2010s, were Mercedes like, oh no, we're going to really struggle, and yeah, they run it with their one hand tied behind their back at times. But there we go. It's going to be interesting. So, if you made it to the end, you know what I'm going to say. If you're not, please give us a subscribe. That would be great if you're not. But you just clicking on this and the fact that you made it to the end is absolutely awesome and more than enough in our eyes. If you want to do that bit extra, hit that like button, comment below. Let us know whether you think Verstappen is favourite going into, or whether Verstappen has any problems and what those problems are. Until then, though, stay safe, speak to you soon, and thank you very much.